The chamber was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that came before a storm, the kind that hummed with unseen power. The air itself trembled, thick with psychic residue from rituals too dark to name. Blue flames danced in rune-carved braziers, casting shadows that moved as if alive. Every flicker whispered secrets, and every breath felt borrowed. Suspended at the center of the room hung a man, or what used to be one. His body was bound in chains inscribed with symbols older than humanity. His flesh was pale and stretched tight over bone, every muscle trembling under invisible strain. His eyes were gone, replaced by two burning voids that glowed with unholy fire. Around him, arcs of energy hissed and snapped, as if reality itself was trying to push him away. And then he spoke. "You cannot fathom eternity," the voice rasped, layered and unnatural, half human, half something far beyond. "But I can. I live it. I endure it." That was the voice of a creature trapped between worlds, both man and monster, both prisoner and weapon. He was a Daemonhost. Inquisitor Alaric Voss stood a few feet away, his face cold and unreadable beneath his hood. He was a man of the Ordo, Malleus, the Inquisition's division tasked with hunting demons. To most, his duty was sacred. To him, it was a necessary corruption. He believed that to fight monsters, one must understand them, and sometimes even use them. The man hanging before him was once a heretic psyker, condemned to death for crimes against the Emperor. But Voss saw potential in his sin. He saw a tool. The ritual had taken days, each hour soaked in blood, and whispered prayers to powers that no loyal servant of the Imperium should ever name. One by one, Voss's acolytes had perished, their minds and souls ripped apart as the veil between reality and the warp thinned. By the end, only Voss remained, chanting alone in the echoing dark. And then it came. The temperature dropped. The air screamed. Reality buckled as something vast and hateful clawed its way through the veil. The demon's presence filled the chamber, an ocean of rage pressing against the fragile walls of the mortal world. But the wards held. The sigils burned. The chains glowed white-hot as they forced the creature inward. The heretic's body convulsed, bones cracking and rearranging under the weight of something infinite. His mouth opened in a silent scream as his soul was devoured, replaced by the will of a god's nightmare. When the ritual ended, the being hung limply, steaming and trembling, the air around him warping like heat above a flame. The Inquisitor stepped closer. "Do you understand your purpose, creature?" The demon's head twitched. Its mouth opened, and a dozen voices spoke as one. "Your weapon? You cage a hurricane and call it yours? Foolish mortal." And yet, for all its threats, it could do nothing. The hexagrammic wards held, humming softly with psychic resonance. The Daemonhost hung, seething and humiliated, trapped inside mortal flesh. Time passed. The Daemonhost became Voss's greatest secret, and his most dangerous creation. When unleashed, it was a force of nature. It could tear through heretics, destroy cults, and crush demonic incursions with brutal ease. Its power was unimaginable, yet always leashed, contained by Voss's control runes and psychic commands. But inside the vessel, the demon's torment never ended. It remembered what it meant to be free, to roam the immaterium, to devour souls and swim through the tides of chaos. Now, every heartbeat was agony. Every second was a prison. The mortal shell burned, rejecting it. The flesh tore, then healed, then tore again, endlessly repeating the same horrific cycle. Sometimes, in its moments of stillness, the demon could hear something deep within the host's mind. A faint, human voice, weak, trembling, begging, "Please, let me die." The demon laughed at first. It found amusement in the man's pathetic pleas. But with time, something inside it began to shift. It started hearing those words differently, not as a human's pain, but as an echo of its own. Because the demon, too, wanted release. There were no enemies to conquer here, no dominion to claim, only pain. Endless, cyclical, eternal pain. The body burned from the inside, the mind tore itself apart, and the spirit screamed across realities. And through it all, Voss watched with the cold detachment of a man who believed his sins were justified. He would whisper command phrases, and the Daemonhost would obey, bound by invisible psychic chains. It hated him. Oh, how it hated him. But it could not act. Every attempt to break free sent waves of searing light through its body, shredding its very essence. The demon's pride began to wither, replaced by something it had never known before. Fear. There came a night when the Inquisitor approached his creation not as a master, but as a confessor. His eyes were heavy, his face drawn. The war against chaos had taken a toll even on him. "You are my greatest sin," he murmured, gazing at the Daemonhost. "And my greatest triumph." The creature's voice came out like smoke. "You think you can balance sin and salvation, mortal? You think your emperor smiles upon what you've done?" "I think," Voss replied quietly, "that he allows monsters like me because the galaxy is far worse without us." The demon laughed softly, a chilling, hollow sound. "You are closer to us than you know." And with that, the chamber fell silent again, except for the faint hum of the chains and the whispering voices bleeding through from the warp. But deep inside the Daemonhost, something stirred, something neither Inquisitor nor demon understood. The human soul, long thought erased, began to flicker back to life. It whispered words of faith, fragments of prayer, echoes of devotion that even the demon could not silence. It was the soul's final act of defiance, a candle refusing to be snuffed out. And within that fragile spark, something changed. For the first time, the demon felt not anger, not hunger, but doubt. The Inquisitor believed he had mastered the creature. But what he did not realize was that the prison he had created was not just a cage for a demon. It was a crucible. And in that crucible, both man and monster were being reshaped, twisted toward something far more dangerous than either had been alone. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is no peace. Only war, only suffering, only endless agony. The air on Karsus 7 was thick with the stench of ash and death. Smoke from burning cities rolled across the horizon like black tides. The sky shimmered unnaturally, fractured by the touch of the warp. This was no ordinary war zone. This was a battlefield where reality itself bled. Inquisitor Alaric Voss stood on a rise overlooking the chaos. His black armor, etched with the sigil of the Ordo Malleus, was scorched from previous campaigns. Around him, stormtroopers of the Inquisition's retinue held their positions, weapons ready, eyes fearful. They had seen what their master carried within the runic containment cage, a figure bound in glowing chains, whispering words that made even the fearless tremble. The Daemonhost. It crouched within its shimmering prison, its eyes glowing with molten light. Its body, though humanoid, was wrong. Muscles rippled under skin that shimmered like oil. Occasionally the runes flared and seared its flesh, forcing it into obedience, every time the creature smiled through the pain. "You feel it too, don't you, Inquisitor?" The demon hissed, its voice echoing in layers. "The air is thin here. The veil is weak. My kind is near." Voss's jaw tightened. "You will speak when commanded." The demon chuckled, a sound that vibrated like cracking stone. "Command me, leash me, bind me, it doesn't matter. You cannot cage the storm forever." Voss ignored it, but inside his heart was unsteady. He knew the demon was right about one thing. The veil on Karsus 7 was unstable. The planet was drowning in Scientian corruption. A cult had torn open a rift, and reality was unraveling. He had been ordered to cleanse the world. But to do so, he needed the Daemonhost's power. It was a gamble that could damn his soul forever. When the first assault began, the enemy appeared not as men, but as distorted silhouettes, their bodies twisted by the warp. Their chanting filled the ruined streets, voices melding into one dreadful hymn to the changer of ways. Reality rippled as they approached, and the ground itself began to bleed. Voss gave a single command: "Release the binding cage." His soldiers hesitated. They had seen what happened the last time the Daemonhost was freed, a massacre so brutal that even the dead seemed afraid. But Voss's voice was absolute. The runic seals dimmed. The containment field shattered in a burst of blue fire. The Daemonhost stepped forward, stretching its limbs as the ground cracked beneath its feet. "Oh, how I've missed the taste of freedom," it whispered, inhaling the burning air. Its gaze turned toward the cultists. "Let me show them what eternity feels like." The creature raised its hands and warp lightning exploded from its fingertips. The sky turned violet. Screams filled the battlefield as cultists melted into pools of flesh. The Daemonhost moved like a living storm, every motion birthing new horrors, shadows that devoured men, flames that whispered prayers, winds that carried madness. The soldiers watched in awe and terror. Inquisitor Voss, however, was not awed. He was terrified for a different reason. The wards that bound the demon were flickering. Every time the Daemonhost killed, its power grew. and the sigils that kept it under control dimmed. The energy here was too strong, too raw, feeding the creature through the warp. "Reinforce the seals," Voss shouted into his comm bead. "Now!" But the tech priest assisting him screamed as his mind burst open. Overwhelmed by the psychic backlash, the Daemonhost turned its head slowly, its gaze falling on Voss. Its smile was no longer mocking. It was something worse. Pity. "You never understood, did you?" The creature murmured. "You thought you were the master of this cage. But the cage was built for both of us." Voss drew his force sword, the blade crackling with psychic energy. "By the Emperor's light, I command you, return to your bindings." The demon's laughter echoed across the battlefield. "The Emperor cannot hear you here." Reality shattered. Warp energy surged through the Daemonhost's body, tearing away its mortal shell. Its form twisted, expanding into a shape that defied logic. Part fire, part shadow, part screaming faces of the damned. Every cultist, every soldier, even the air itself bent under the weight of its presence. And in that moment it felt freedom again. True freedom. The Inquisitor's runes flared desperately, burning into his flesh as he tried to reinforce the psychic chains. "I order you back to your prison," he roared, his mind bleeding from the effort. But the demon only smiled. "You cannot order what you never owned." It raised one clawed hand, and Voss was thrown backward by a wave of psychic force, his armor cracking, his bones shattering. Pain shot through every nerve, yet he refused to let go. He reached for the control sigil at his belt, his last failsafe. A single press would collapse the Daemonhost's essence into the warp, even if it destroyed him in the process. He hesitated, because in the chaos of the demon's aura, he heard something he wasn't supposed to. A human voice. The demon's form flickered. Its monstrous shape wavered between nightmare and man, and from within the storm the faint, broken voice of the host whispered, "Voss, help me." It was the soul of the Psyker, the man he had sacrificed to create this weapon, somehow still alive, within the horror. And for the first time Inquisitor Voss felt shame. He had thought the soul consumed, but it had been trapped all this time, enduring centuries of pain, suffering, and burning madness, buried beneath the demon's fury. The creature screamed in anguish, as the two souls, the demon and the man, fought for control of the same body. Fire and blood rained from the sky. The warp rippled with their struggle. "Kill me," the human soul cried. "End this, please." Voss hesitated no longer. With shaking hands, he activated the sigil. The explosion that followed could be seen from orbit. A sphere of blue fire erupted, consuming the battlefield in psychic flame. Everything within a mile radius, flesh, stone, and spirit, was erased. When the light faded, nothing remained but silence and ash. The Daemonhost was gone, or so the Inquisitor thought. Voss was the only survivor. His armor was fused to his flesh, his mind fractured by the psychic backlash. He was evacuated by his remaining forces, silent and broken. In his mind, the last words of the demon echoed endlessly. "You cannot destroy eternity. You can only share it." Days later, as he sat alone in the Medici ship, he began to hear whispers. Faint at first, then louder. Voices calling his name. His reflection, once clear, now shimmered faintly in the mirror beside his bed, eyes glowing faintly gold. He reached up, trembling. "No, impossible." The voice inside his head chuckled softly. "We are not finished, Inquisitor." Voss screamed as his body convulsed, his soul twisting in on itself. The demon was not gone. It had found a new host. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no salvation. Not for the damned, not for the Inquisitor, and not for the soul that dared cage eternity. The Medici ship drifted through the void, silent and cold. Its engines purred softly as it carried survivors from the slaughtered world of Karsus Seventh. Inside its sanctum, among rows of damaged soldiers and shell-shocked priests, sat Inquisitor Alaric Voss, alone, cloaked in shadows. His armor was cracked, his body broken, and his mind unsteady. He had faced demons before. He had seen entire planets burn under the weight of chaos, but this was different. The silence felt wrong. It whispered. He sat motionless, staring at his reflection in the polished metal wall across from his bed. The dim light flickered, and for a brief second, the reflection didn't move with him. Its lips curled into a smile. "Still trying to convince yourself you're in control?" The reflection asked softly, voice dripping with venom. "Still pretending you won?" Voss froze. The voice was familiar, too familiar. It was his, and yet it wasn't. No, he whispered to himself, gripping the edge of the bed. You're gone. I ended you. The reflection chuckled, and its eyes ignited with the same golden flame he had seen in the Daemonhost. Ended me? Oh, Alaric, you freed me. You shattered the chains that bound us both. You tore down the walls, and now there's nowhere left for either of us to hide. The room darkened. The lights above flickered, then died completely. In the blackness, something moved, something just behind his thoughts. He could feel it, pressing against the edges of his mind like claws scraping glass. His breathing grew ragged as he fumbled for his rosarius, clutching it tightly against his chest. In the Emperor's name? He gasped. I command you. The Emperor? The voice laughed, low and cruel. You think he still hears you, little Inquisitor? You think your faith can shield you from what you've done? From me? The reflection reached out of the mirror, fingers of shadow stretching toward him. You and I are bound now. You made sure of that. He stumbled from the chamber, screaming for the ship's psychers and confessors. But as the doors hissed open, he froze. The corridors were gone. In their place stretched an endless hall of bone and fire. The walls pulsed like veins, alive and breathing. The floor beneath him rippled with liquid shadow. He was no longer aboard the Medici ship. He was inside something else, something not real, yet all too real. The warp. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. No, this isn't real. This isn't happening. Oh, but it is, the demon purred. Its voice now inside him, around him, everywhere. Do you know what eternity feels like, Alaric? You bound me once. You forced me to suffer in silence, trapped in weak mortal flesh. Now it is your turn to learn what eternity truly means. The air shimmered, and the figure of the Daemonhost appeared before him, not as it once was, but as a nightmare-given form. Its body was an ever-shifting storm of shadow and light, its face alternating between monstrous and human. Sometimes it wore the face of the psyker Voss had sacrificed. Sometimes it wore his own. You did this, the demon hissed, stepping closer. You broke the walls between us. When you pressed that sigil, when you killed me, our essences fused. Your body survived, but your soul smiled. Your soul belongs to me. Voss tried to rise, but his body felt heavy, weighed down by guilt and something far worse, recognition. The demon was right. He could feel it inside him, whispering through his blood, feeding on his thoughts. He remembered the ritual, the first binding, the screams, the blood, the arrogance. He had told himself it was all for the Emperor, all for the greater good. But deep down, even then, he had known the truth. He hadn't done it for the Emperor. He'd done it for power, and power always has a price. The demon circled him slowly. You tried to play God, Alaric. You thought you could chain eternity, shape it, use it. But you never understood that the warp doesn't serve, it consumes. Voss's voice cracked as he whispered, Then kill me, end it. Oh no. The demon's tone softened, almost tender. Death is far too kind. You made me endure agony without end, bound in flesh and fire, screaming into the void while your prayers burned my soul. Now you will know that same agony. The world around them twisted again. He was back in the ritual chamber, the same one where it all began. Only this time he was the one in chains. His body hung in the center, suspended by glowing runes. He could feel them burning into his flesh, etching symbols that hummed with psychic torment. He tried to scream, but no sound came. His tongue was gone. The demon stood before him, now wearing his face entirely. The great Inquisitor Alaric Voss, it said mockingly. Hunter of demons, slayer of heretics, master of torment. How ironic that the only soul you ever truly damned was your own. It leaned in close, whispering into his ear, Welcome to your eternity. And with that, the pain began. It was not the pain of flesh, it was deeper, more profound. It was the pain of knowing, of remembering, of feeling every life he had destroyed, every innocent he had condemned, every soul he had sacrificed in his pursuit of righteousness. The demon forced him to relive them all, over and over and over again. Time lost meaning. Years, centuries, millennia, none mattered. The torment was endless, looping, perfect. Sometimes he would awaken on the Medici ship again, thinking it had all been a dream, only for the walls to melt and the demon's laughter to echo once more. Sometimes he saw the faces of his victims staring at him from the darkness, whispering prayers he could no longer remember. And sometimes, in the rare moments of silence, he heard a faint human voice, the voice of the psyker he had once bound, saying softly, almost pityingly, Now you understand. And so, The Inquisitor became what he had sworn to destroy. His soul and the demons fused into one abomination, neither mortal nor immortal, trapped in the warp's endless torment. The hunters of the Ordo Malleus still whisper of him, of Voss the Bound, a demon who was once an Inquisitor, forever crying out in agony across the Imperium. They say that when a new Inquisitor attempts to bind a demon, sometimes, just sometimes, the ritual chamber grows cold, and a voice echoes in the dark saying, "Don't make my mistake." And then a faint laugh, low, broken, eternal. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is no redemption, only agony, only madness, and only the endless echo of what was once a man. If that story gave you chills, then don't scroll away just yet. Hit that like button to support more dark Warhammer tales, and subscribe to join our growing legion of lore lovers. Every share brings more souls into the grim darkness, so share this with a fellow Warhammer fan,